Here we go. It's the DC Sports Huddle. I'm Dave Johnson and Rob Woodfork, George Wallace, Dave Preston. We, of course, are sponsored by MGM National Harbor. For the latest in Washington sports, visit MGM National Harbor and experience a sports fan's paradise. That's right. The biggest excuse of the year to eat and drink. Preseason football is back. I cannot wait. I've been wanting to get the wings and nachos together because, you know what, win or lose, it's not going to matter. But football's back. And then we also had encouraging reports about what's going on behind the scenes with this Washington Commanders football team. Maybe the workplace culture under Jason Wright, et cetera, is going in the right direction. So we're just going to start there. I think what needs to be remembered while this situation, and that's a broad term with Daniel Snyder, continues, the investigation continues. Roger Goodell continues to say, we'll wait for the Congress to keep looking at the workplace culture and then we'll weigh in. I think this should give fans hope that why not? This could be a winning and successful team because the people that are there now, and some of them we know, some of them we just met, like Jason Wright, like Ron Rivera, on the inside of the front office. We've known for years now. Julie Donaldson, our good friend from the media, and she is now part of the Commanders broadcast and part of the Commanders front office. These are good people working hard in that front office. So whatever happened in the past is you don't dismiss whatever happened in the past, but the focus should be on the here and now. That's what fans need to know about. So don't worry about that other stuff. You can look at it. You can be interested in it. It does need to be still addressed, but hey, there's hope for the season. Go. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I'm going to let somebody positive go first. No, man, because look, the safest time to fly is, and this is going to be a harsh comparison, the safest time to fly is after a plane crash. The best time to, you do your safest driving after you got pinched for a red light camera and all that. And that's for my guy, Frank Hanrahan. So look, I believe that they have good people in place. I believe that they have sort of changed the day to day, but it's hard to believe in a full long-term change as long as Dan Snyder is still in the building. So to me, he's the source from which all of this dysfunction flowed. So unless and until he is reprimanded or he's out, and here's the thing, I've heard from people around football that it's a matter of time before Snyder is out. And whatever report there was before about there being a vote being counted and all that stuff, it's not going to happen that fast. But I would be willing to bet that when Washington moves its franchise to, playing games in a new stadium in 2027, I think there's going to be a different owner who's at the helm.
No, and I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is that there's hope because when you focus on the here and now, a Jason Wright doesn't stick around and suffer fools gladly. A Jason Wright is not just hanging around to get a paycheck. Jason Wright is a quality guy.
I agree.
The shenanigans.
I agree.
If his owner intervenes, the minute you see a Jason Wright or any of those people that have come in the last couple of years of quality decide to resign, that's your signal that there really isn't change.
Well, I mean, we've seen people resign who were of that ilk. I think Brian LaFemina, if I'm saying his name right.
He was asked to leave. But he was also told when he came in he was going to be allowed to do his thing too.
Right, exactly. So those are the situations that that give you pause and that you don't easily forget when you have people. So look, Jason Wright, if he has the leeway to do things the way he needs to do things, then that's a positive for that franchise. Same for Ron Rivera. But history, 25 years of history, not a 5-year snapshot or whatever, but 25 years of history suggests that it's not a matter of if, Snyder comes in and starts screwing things up. It's a matter of when. So it's a matter of him getting out before those guys are either asked to leave or leave of their own accord.
Well, but also, and I think he will be out eventually. The NFL desperately wants him out, but I also think he is desperately, and his I don't know this, but I assume this is wife Tanya. They want to hold on to this. Look, it's a cash cow. You've won the lottery. You're part of a 32 team monopoly. So as much as he wants to maybe intervene now or do this or do that, he is going to be muted because he's living in stark fear he's going to lose it. Look, he wasn't always the bad guy. I remember when he bought the team. I remember when, and look, I don't blame him for changing the name of the franchise, but I remember when he told me on WTOP he was not going to change the name, not the franchise, the stadium. He was not going to change the name of the stadium because so appreciative are we, was his exact quote. And of course, it became FedEx Field. And of course, Raljon, you can't even find on a map anymore because that no longer exists. So it all changed. But, you know, initially you had Deion Sanders. But he never did anything. And I remember for years asking him to come on WTOP, talk to the fans. People around him were difficult to deal with. So he didn't help himself. And I don't feel sorry for the situation he's in public relations wise. But again, my point is here and now that's all we live by season. So in the vacuum that we're in now, unless a Jason Wright resigns, you can rest assured the team is being run in the proper way right now, and that gives you a chance to win.
I think we've got high hopes. I mean, with every regime change here, you have to have high hopes on some level. But I think over the 25 year history of the current ownership, you have to have one eye open. And you have to, I mean, it's unfortunate that we live in a world where you wait for the other shoe to drop. We don't feel that way with at least two of the other teams in town. The Capitals and the Wizards were more focused on how can they keep this core together? What will they do to get the right nucleus in place for a playoff run? Here we have to worry about on the field issues, as well as in the last couple of years since the Washington Post did their digging and they found quite a bit when they dug stuff up. We have to wonder when the other shoe is going to drop. And that's unfortunate because when this team is good, Dave, you grew up in this area. You know what this place is like. Rob, you too, George, you guys know what this place is like when the Burgundy and Gold are humming from 1971 to 1993, basically. This was a Burgundy and Gold town. And I would say even into the early aughts, before things really started to take hold, this was still a Washington football team, town first, and everybody else is, diving and picking up scraps during the off season. So, I mean, I think if this team, if this franchise, if this owner changes, if eyes can change and yous can change, maybe we all can change, Mr. Balboa. But I think if they can get this team going the right way, this franchise going the right way, it's going to be something awesome. But until they do, I'm always going to be wary that something might happen.
All right, George, you've been watching every practice, and we got to report on something, and I love seeing reports about Carson Wentz, how many passes he completed at practice. I've got to make a note of when he was 3 for 6 and exactly. Is there anything to worry about here? I mean, this is we haven't even played a game yet.
No, and by the way, Tanya has been out. I believe it's like 6 straight practices now. She's been out there watching and talking with Ron. I'd love to hear those conversations, by the way, after practice. But look, there's nowhere to go really, but up for this. I mean, everybody in that building is new. I mean, everybody's new except for the guy at top. So to your points about you still got to be wary of that. Yeah, the guy who still signed the paychecks, the guy who all this started is still in the building, or not in the building, but he's still in charge. But yes, everybody else is new. Jason Wright is perfect for this. I think Ron Rivera as well. Frankly, I'm surprised Jason Wright's still here after the rebrand. I thought he would have moved on to bigger and better things, to be honest. But and I still think he will at some point. But they've got a hold on it now. It's just going to be a matter of what they're allowed to do and how much further they can go with it. I mean, you heard Dan Snyder yesterday talking to the Maryland board about the gambling situation. He says, come out and see the stadium. It's made so many improvements to it, and we've got ourselves a quarterback now. We finally got ourselves a quarterback. So that was his first public comment since the early February in the naming event at FedEx Field. So yeah, I mean, do I think it's in the right direction? Do I think there actually is a quote unquote culture change? I've seen it more this year. I think now that we're kind of back to normal from the COVID situation, I think things that you see on and off the field and the things Ron Rivera is doing. I mean, he's football wise, I think he's feeling pressure this year too, because he fired his defensive line coach 2 weeks into practice. I think that's a sense of urgency move. And I think that puts Jack Del Rio on notice. I think it puts a lot of other guys on notice. He's talked about how he needs to win in this year 3, because who knows what's going to happen. So I do kind of sense a shift all around. Yes. And whether or not that continues, look, we've all been around it. We don't know. We believe it when we see it. That's just kind of what I've learned to think and believe, and we'll see how we do moving forward.
What do we make of that? Defensive line coach doesn't typically get fired in training camp. I mean, not saying it should be,
and days before the first preseason
Right.
game, it's like
I'm not saying that-
I kind of smell a fit. Look, here's the thing: if he was a guy that he inherited, or if he was a guy that they just picked up like in the last season or two, you know, I don't think I would think anything of it. But Sam Mills III was with him in Carolina. Like anytime Ron Rivera's been a head coach, Sam Mills III has been on his staff. So I don't know how after 12 years, all of a sudden philosophical differences, or however they worded it, I don't know how those crop up after 12 years of working together.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Something happened, and I haven't been able to find out what yet. To be honest, I know there was some tension along the defensive line last year with him. Some guys didn't like him, some did. You know, Matt Ioannidis is gone. Tim Settle's out. You know, they were throwing punches last year in Dallas. So, you know, things weren't always right along that defensive line, to be honest. And from what the rumblings I had heard, I thought maybe this would have been done at the end of last season. So I don't know what happened, but something had to have happened to trigger this after watching 2 weeks of practice. And with Jeff Scanina too, look, the guy's been with Sam for 3 years. So it's not like everything's going to change. You kind of run in the same scheme and same sort of thing under the Jack Del Rio defense. So, you know, I'd love to find out what happened and what kind of triggered this, but I haven't been able to do that yet.
Go ahead, Dave.
I think the move stemmed from the fact that you look at the Washington defense and you look at them as a team. The defensive line should be, you know, the engine that's firing this defense.
But then do it in
for whatever
January.
reason-
Nothing's changed since
Right.
April, May. Yeah.
And I think what he did was maybe he's known Sam Mills III for a long time. They've worked together. He's been a mentor all these years. And I think maybe he wanted to give him one more, you know, go. And maybe perhaps he wanted to let him down easy and, you know, remove him after the Hall of Fame weekend ceremony, because that was a special time for the Mills family. It's tough to go to a Hall of Fame ceremony for your dad and be like, oh yeah, I just lost my job. So, you know, for those of us who go to weddings, recently unemployed, it doesn't feel good.
My favorite quote so far is Ron Rivera saying the secondaries talking to each other and they're not looking like a bunch of guys just running around out there, which they did last year. So that gives us hope, because how often do you thought, boy, we're doing better on defense, and bam, 40-yard touchdown.
Baby steps.
Yeah. So baby steps. So it's good. Maybe that's the sign we're getting out of the Zoom era. They're actually talking to each other. We're learning how to communicate. And I say that as we sit here, 4 guys talking on Zoom.
And along those lines, I think, you know, a key this year is for a defensive line to reach its potential, because when they don't, a secondary that's not the best will be exposed. It's very tough to disguise a secondary that's not good. And I don't think the secondary is there yet. So the defensive line needs to take some heat, needs to take some pressure off the back 7, especially the back 4.
You know, one more thing I'll say on this as we go back and forth all over the place on Dan Snyder. If he is allowed to come back, I guarantee you he's not going to have the same influence on the franchise, because the image I can still not get out of my mind is from the uniform announcement back in February or whenever that was. You know, and he was unshaven, much like I am right now. I mean, he looked like a 3rd-string quarterback that had just been cut and has no hope. And his message it was supposed to be a special day with the uniforms, you know, and not that he could ever be that inspiring as a speaker, but he definitely looked like a sack quarterback. That's my take on that. All right. Anything else on the Commanders with the preseason game number 1?
What do we all want? What are we all looking for? I mean, George has been at practice and seeing all the the progression of this team, getting ready for the season. I mean, there's a couple of things that I'm looking for. I mean, everybody's looking at Carson Wentz, right? I mean, that's got to be the number one thing everybody's looking at. But I mean,
there's nothing more exciting than vanilla offenses. I love vanilla offenses, which they always talk
and that's
about.
the thing. It's like you're not going to really see anything. Everybody's kind of looking for some sort of hope that third time's a charm for him. But
Let me tell you this.
Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me tell you this. Here's my new theory.
Okay.
Okay. All of the okay, you've heard all the talk about Carson. Is he inaccurate? Whatever. Blah blah blah. Right. Okay. Carson is who he is. He's a 60 whatever % completion quarterback. You're going to get the good and the bad. Ron has said multiple times they're putting everything in on Carson Wentz. Right. No secrets. So I'm wondering if, and he said today they're going to go 15 to 20 plays. I'm wondering if you're going to see a little more game planning for Saturday, because I'm wondering if Ron wants to come out there and show the people, because they don't game plan for preseason at all. You run a few plays, whatever. So I'm wondering if
not unless you're Steve Spurrier.
They have
Osaka.
I wonder if they have a little more of a game plan, a little more of a script for Carson to get him off to a good start, so Ron can come in there afterwards and say, "See, guys, look, it's game situation. He's better than everybody's ready. Everybody's saying." Because this is an important deal for Ron. Like, he's gone all in on Carson Wentz, made it no bones about it. This is the guy he says he wanted. Now, I still don't know if I believe that, but he went in all in. So that's my theory for this weekend. I wonder if you're going to see a little more. I was surprised he said 15 to 20 plays, to be honest. So we'll see what happens. But that's just my thought on that.
So George Wallace is predicting he's going to hang 50 on the Panthers, just like the Osaka game back in 2002.
Ron's going to come in and say, "I told you guys, just be patient."
Yeah. All right, Dave Preston, what are you looking for?
I'm going to look for some offensive cohesion. I'm not looking for necessarily results on the field, because you're basically going with the vanilla offense, maybe with a couple tweaks here and there. I want to see some cohesion in the offensive line. Chase Roulier not playing this Saturday. I want to see the crispness and intensity that you have seen with Ron Rivera coach teams in August and early September that we did not get with Jake Gruden's clubs that seemed to sleepwalk through the first half of September. So I'm looking for some energy and some enthusiasm and some execution as well. Not necessarily results. I'm not going to look for a certain amount of points or a certain amount of third down conversions, but you just want to see some growth on both sides of the ball as they're on track for opening day.
Rob?
I'm looking at the linebackers. Besides the quarterback situation, I'm looking at the linebackers because very quietly there's a situation brewing there with that Mike linebacker position. It's not often that a fifth rounder who sort of falls into the starting position ends up being, sort of a point of discussion. But Cole Holcomb is in the final year of his contract. He's getting a bite at that apple of being sort of the answer, the quarterback of the defense there at that Mike linebacker position. I mean, if he balls out and has sort of a borderline Pro Bowl season or better, then they might just re-up him. They might just spend money on him, or the Nationals will trade him. Either way.
All right, and again, I don't know if you'll get it's not just one game. It's the entire preseason. I kind of tipped my hand when I talked about the secondary, but it's the entire defense. And I know you're facing a vanilla offense, whatever. I just want to see a defense that does not give up the big play.
Yeah,
they were 29th in passing yards allowed last year. So for whatever improvement we have on offense, and we can stop teams for 2 downs, but if you give up that backbreaking morale sapping play, that's going to just sidetrack your season. So they have to be more disciplined in that regard. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out for not giving up the big play this.
And also just a quick warning, just of who we're going to see them play on Saturday. I mean, this is a Carolina Panthers team that has been just wildly shooting at quarterbacks here. So you're getting Baker Mayfield, just a few weeks after getting there. Sam Darnold, you don't really know what you're going to see from him. So
No Cam Newton though.
Yeah, no
Bummer.
Cam Newton, which is why they're not going to win this year.
Right. All right. On with the line of scrimmage. George, any other thoughts?
You know what? I may be in the minority on this, but the Wizards going back to the blue, the bronze, the blue and white uniforms for 25. First of all, I can't believe it's 25 years. That just shows you Dave's been around a long time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you celebrate that. To me, that was just an ugly uniform. I know they're going back, they're going to wear it, and they got a new court design going back in the day, 25 years, and they're going to wear it some games this year. I don't know which games, but I'm done with that Wizards uniform. That's just me.
Actually, that was going to be mine too. And look, as the resident sports fashionista here, stop bringing back the teal stuff, man. That was 90s. So the Wizards fit in that category. The Detroit Pistons have been out here bragging about bringing back those teal uniforms that they should never.
They're not good.
The Wizards are not teal.
Stop with all the 90s.
Yeah, the Wizards aren't teal.
We don't need that. No, it's not teal, but it's like one of those like light tertiary colors that were always hot in the, in the 90s.
I hope you're happy. You got tertiary now.
I've been waiting for weeks to get tertiary.
Tertiary. I hope you're happy now.
All right. Dave Preston, what's your tertiary comment?
Well, tertiary comment, all eyes on College Park. Maryland returning 16 starters from its first bowl winning team in over a decade. A lot of eyes on Talia Tagovailoa, who set a school record for passing yards last year. But the keys this year, can they run the ball effectively on offense, and can they stop teams defensively until they can? They'll be that cute team in September that can't compete in October. So a lot of pressure on the offensive line being able to run the ball, and a lot of pressure defensively on teams being able to hold foes to under 30 points in Big Ten play.
And they wear better uniforms.
Yes.
It says the man in a white shirt right now, which probably costs more than my entire wardrobe. The fashion
Free-ish since 1865.
The fashionista Rob Woodfork. What's your audible?
No, that was mine, man. I was going to go off on this whole.
All right, and I'm going to say this, and this is now George's reminded people that I'm announcing my retirement on this week's show because I haven't been around long. And this is, by the way, figure this out. It's the 25th year of the Wizards, but it's actually going to be the 26th season of the Wizards. But that's a whole nother story. But we just had the 53rd edition of the tennis tournament here in Washington, which once was the Washington Star Invitational, which once upon a time there was another newspaper in this town, the Washington Star. Look, people like Francis Tiafoe, Haley Baptiste, it's not just about this tennis tournament. It has inspired generations now of Washingtonians into playing tennis. It's an important part of the sporting fabric of this city. The condition of Rock Creek Park, the tennis center, has to be addressed. We now have a first-class tournament. That on the men's side, that's one of the biggies leading up to the U.S. Open. If we're going to keep that event, at some point in the coming years, you have the stewardship of Mark Gein, and he's certainly been investing, but there has to be some kind of collaboration to make sure that that facility gets an upgrade, because it's an important part of our city and has given opportunities to so many. And so it's beyond just the pro tournament that we celebrate every year, but we're not going to have that pro tournament if the conditions at Rock Creek Park are not upgraded, just simply because the place is old and it's starting to show its age. And speaking of showing its age, this DC Sports Huddle is starting to show its age. So we'll come back and try better next week. But we appreciate you for joining us. The DC Sports Huddle, of course, is sponsored by MGM National Harbor, for latest in Washington sports. Visit MGM National Harbor, experience a sports fan paradise. For Dave Preston, who is busy working, for George Wallace, who's trying to get more sun cream on after being at Commander's training camp, and for Rob Woodfork, who has to go shirt shopping, I'm Dave Johnson. We'll see you next week.
Break.